Welcome, Dr. Stephen Hobbs here. This is Trees Every Day number 5. It's in the series of Sunday presentations about something to do with the WELLth movement. And today we're going to take a look at ecosystem. And it's a complementary aspect to earlier videos where I have shared information about ecological literacy and ethical values. And I just wanted to look at this word of ecosystems because I shorten it down and often use the word eco, applying what it is that I'm going to give to you now. And there's going to be 4 ecosystems that we're going to take into consideration. The first one is the biology-ecology version. Another is a general approach that I use in my work. And then I'm going to give a couple of examples, one in particular, which is to do with the organization of work, one that I have used when I have done organization culture, workplace culture work. And then the last one I'm going to take a look at is the notion of WELLth movement as an ecosystem and what are the components that make that up. So just before I dive into it, I'm just going to remind you to subscribe, ring the bell to get notifications of the next video that's coming out. And please comment, like, and share. That way we can interact and learn from each other. The first way of looking at ecosystem is from a biology-ecology perspective. And I'm jumping into this one first is because often when we hear the word ecosystem, we associate it with biology and ecology. And it's one of the first ways in which I came to understand ecology. And it was more when I was doing my forestry related studies and moving it into my outdoor recreation. And this area of ecosystems is very much about the interaction between biotic elements and abiotic elements. Now, the differentiation between the two of them is biotic elements are the living things like the producers, the consumers, the decomposers. We as human beings are part of the biotic component. And then there's the abiotic, and that's to do with water and rocks and sunlight. That is the non-living element of the ecosystem. Now, they both interact in such a way is that they form what's called a habitat. Now, the habitat is a description of how these elements work together. And therefore, it's really important to study the interactions between them. And therefore, it's like a community of organisms that are living together. There are 4 types of ecosystems. There is the terrestrial or land-based, there is the freshwater-based, there is the saltwater-based, and then there is the ones that are created by humans. And we hear words like terrarium and aquarium or biosphere. But the 4 main ones are what we think of when we think of ecosystems and the organisms that are interacting in them and what happens in the creation of the habitat through those interactions. So from a very broad sweep, this is the biology-ecology way of looking at ecosystems. Next, I want to look at what we would call a general overview of ecosystems that I'm using in the WELLth movement that stimulates the thinking about the ecosystem that you would create in your own life, whether it's for a business, volunteer work, or just helping to organize your own way of being for the world. And on a general basis, this is how I look at it from an ecosystem approach that I would interact with you about. So the first thing is that there is some kind of a plan map that is available to us, because that's how we navigate in the ecosystem that we are creating. And with that, you start to understand what it means to belong, be, and become, because that is a sequence of understanding who you are and what's happening for you in being for the world. The other component is what we call blueprints, landscape, or gyrocompass. Now, the blueprint is what it is that you would use to build something. The landscape is what you would use to grow something. And the gyrocompass are the tools and techniques that you have to be able to do the navigation. And therefore, the blueprint gives you the tools and techniques, landscape, and you're using them inside of the plan map so that you can understand the progression about belonging to something, being yourself, and then becoming that which you decide to become. At the base of this is the pathway that you are walking, the stepping stones that you are taking. And when you understand that pathway, then you understand the rest of it, and therefore have insight into the ecosystem. So this is a very broad explanation of what we do in the WELLth movement, is to establish your understanding and appreciation and celebration of your ecosystem that you are living from, you're evolving your legacy through, about creating your well-living workplace. These are all ways in which to take a look at being for the world. The next way that I want to look at ecosystems is through the lens of the organization of work. This is the lens that I have used when I was looking at the workplace from a workplace culture point of view. I've done a couple of mergers and acquisitions and used this framework to be able to collect the data, to get the information, the knowledge, and the wisdom to be able to make decisions to move us forward. It's also what I've used to help groups and teams get themselves organized to move forward. And I have used it in my facilitative mentoring while interacting with managers and executives. So it has quite a wide application. And let me share that with you. And what I'm going to do is just place some cards over top of this generic approach that's here. So the first one that I'm going to look at is the connection to map and plan. And the word that I would associate is strategy. And the strategy is understanding the why you're doing what it is that you're doing, the reasons for it, and giving you a sense of the intention that you are working from. The next component is that we would look at what's called the structures. And that's the element of where you get your blueprint and landscape from, is that the structure that you're going to follow, the how you're going to do what you do. The next one is relationships. And it's about who you're interacting with. About yourself is who am I and who am I working with? And this is your stakeholders like customers and clients, vendors and contractors. That is the relationship side of this. The next one you're going to take a look at is around the resources. And this is the pathway of the use of your time, effort, and money. These are the resources that you have available to you. And the last one that I would give you is a reinterpretation of the word ecosystem. And it comes through the word communication, because communication is about the level of commonness that unifies you together into action. So yes, communication can be the message. It can be also the way in which it's delivered. But there's another definition of communication, which is the coordination of the behavior of those you're interacting with. And therefore, this interaction, this ecosystem that you're creating, this organization of work, is the communication necessary to bring strategy, structure, relationships, and resources together. Just as the biology-ecology way of ecosystem in terms of bringing the biotic and abiotic together to be able to form the habitat that allows the interactions, we're doing something very similar, but we might use the word communication when we apply it to the organization of work. The fourth way that I want to look at ecosystem is another one that I can apply on the top of this one. And where it comes from is that these are the programming elements of the WELLth movement. These are the areas in which I'm writing my books that expand out into programs and projects and processes and products that are made available to you through the WELLth movement. And they too form up an ecosystem. And therefore, the first one we start with is the area of evolve your legacy. One of the core programs that we offer is to understand and appreciate your legacy and how do you evolve it? How do you live from your legacy? The next one is for those of you who are still in business or wanting to create your own business, but even from a volunteer perspective, when you go out and volunteer your time and effort into organizations, you are involved in some kind of a workplace. And therefore, how do you co-create the well living workplace? The next one you take a look at is how do you live your extraordinary life? On a day-to-day basis, what is it that you are required and requested to be able to live this extraordinary life in a way that you decide who you will be? The next thing to understand is what are all the elements of your life, the things that you need to learn, in this case, life awareness mapping programs to make it safer for yourself, or leadership and management program and making it safer. There are elements, day-to-day courses, continuous learning that you're involved with, and that's what the lamps can do. And the last one, I just want to make that connection with ecosystem, with the communication. It's really about eco-creating the wealthy world. It's about creating an eco approach using ecosystem understanding to be able to be for the world in such a way is that the world, the planet is not destroyed because of the footprint that you are walking and therefore are leaving. And it's a way in which to balance up this wealth and wealth perspective that you will hear a lot more about as you move through your involvement with the WELLth movement. Now, again, wealth with an L, wealth with an A, and wealth with an L is about live and lead and love and learn, whereas wealth with an A is about accounts and accrue and accountability. Those two interact with each other, and it's the degree to which they interact forms the world in which you live from and being for the world. So what I've attempted to do with this video is explain ecosystem in 4 different ways. One is from a biology ecology perspective, and that's where you have the biotic and abiotic and interactions and habitat. The next one is a general format, just so that you might understand the platform that we're working with from a WELLth movement perspective. And that's where you're balancing off the plan map as it meets the Blueprint-Landscape-Gyrocompass that meets this progression of belonging, being, and becoming along the pathway that you are walking. Then there's the organization of work, the way in which you get paid for what you do, whether you're an entrepreneur or employee, and or as you interact as a volunteer, you're still interacting with the organization of work. And that's where you're balancing off strategy, structure, relationships, resources, and this thing called communication. And finally, as we take a look at the fourth way in which we're looking at this ecosystem story, is through WELLth Movement itself. This is the one that I've used to be able to generate the content and practices that I share out through the programs and projects and processes and products that I make available for you. And that's where you evolve your legacy, co-create the well-living workplace, live your extraordinary life, the lamps that you carry with you, the courses that you take around life awareness mapping programs for safety, your own personal safety, just as it's about leadership and management programming to make the work that you do significant. And it's all balanced off by Ecocreate, the wealthy world, which is my contribution. It's allowing me to create these videos, this digital footprint that I am placing out into the world. And so that I can do it from a wealthy perspective, the balance of the wealth with an L, wealth with an A, and to do it from an eco-creation perspective. So with that, again, I just remind you to subscribe and ring the bell if you want more notifications. And also comment, like, and share. Appreciate hearing from you so that I might learn what's important to you and answer your questions. So with that, this was a broad brush understanding of ecosystem from 4 perspectives, just so that you could understand how they're layered amongst themselves as you get involved with the WELLth movement. So with that, take care.